Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Tadayampi Buddham saranam gacchami. Tadayampi Dhammam saranam gacchami. Tadayampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from the happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata gati gati para samgati bodhi soha. Tayata gati para samgati bodhi soha. Tayata gati para samgati bodhi soha. So now time for some meditation. And we will release the tension inside the body first. So get yourself comfortable. Gently close your eyes, lips gently touching, tongue resting on the upper palate in the mouth. And bring your mind inside the body. And let's release whatever tension we have from the tips of the toes all the way up the legs, up to the shoulders, down to the tips of the fingers, and then to the top of your head. So let's take a few moments to do this now. And once again, scan the body to release whatever leftover tension you may have. Now bring your attention initially to the tip of your nose and follow the feeling of the breath as you breathe in your nose, all the way into your lungs and back out your nose again, and so on. Do this with an inner smile. Be very happy with yourself. Happy inside, happy outside. If any distractions such as thoughts or mental activities arise, don't cling to them, grasp at them, force them away, or try to, or deny them, but simply and naturally put your mind back onto your breath, or place your mind back onto your breath and let them go. And also, if you start to become dull mentally, then brighten your mind a bit by refocusing on the breath more brightly. So let's practice like this in silence for a little bit. Or may I add that you can add the extra technique of counting the breaths from 1 to 10, then back to 1 to 10, so forth. One in breath, one out breath is 1. But if you get distracted on the way to counting to 10, then go back to 1 at that time. So let's practice. So now we can feel very pleased with ourselves, however short the session is, however long the session is. You're very happy with yourself. And feel yourself with universal loving kindness. Feeling of loving kindness. You can also use visualization, where you visualize your whole being, mind and body, filling with the white light or white nectar. Fill yourself with so much loving kindness that it now overflows and radiates outwards. Initially to your loved ones, family and friends, fills them with the universal loving kindness too. Have the wish that they have happiness and the causes of happiness, that they are free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and that they are peaceful. And now also include those that you're indifferent towards, the strangers. Fill them also with the universal loving kindness, wishing that they too are happy, free from suffering, and are peaceful. And also include those you may regard as enemies. May all of these people be happy, free from suffering, be peaceful. Filling them with the universal loving kindness. Now let's radiate further and further distance-wise, initially around your immediate area, to all of the different types of living beings, whether they live in the waters or on the land, fly through the air, however they are born, however they exist. All sentient beings, whether weak or strong, great or small, short or tall, seen or unseen, near or distant, born or to be born. And they radiate throughout your whole state or county. And other states and counties throughout your whole country. And other countries throughout the whole world. Those you have an affinity towards, those that you're indifferent towards, and those that you may have negative feelings towards. And also throughout all of the waterways, the oceans, the rivers, the lakes, to the highest mountains, all the way to the core of the earth and to the outermost atmosphere. Till your loving kindness pervades throughout this whole planet that we call Earth, and to all of the different types of living beings, whether you know about them or not. And now beyond this planet alone, throughout the whole solar system, and throughout the whole galaxy, and the universe, until your loving kindness pervades throughout infinite space. Your loving kindness radiates everywhere, all of the time. And now let's switch techniques to the giving-taking meditation, or in Tibetan, Tong. And today we'll start by radiating this white light from your heart center, giving away all. Actually, we'll do the other one first. So visualize infinite living beings in front of you, or at least bring to mind infinite living beings. Bring to mind the difficulties they experience, just like you, and of course, much worse as well. And have the wish to free them from this suffering and the causes of their suffering. And also give them the happiness and the causes of happiness, the causes of the path to enlightenment, ultimately. So initially, we will take the black smoke comes from their heart center or heart centers and enters into your heart center, relieving them of the sufferings and also melting away your ego or self-centeredness. So let's do this for a short while, relieving the beings of their suffering at the same time, destroying the root cause of samsara, our ignorance, the attachment to self, self-centeredness, and the like. Visualizing the black smoke from their heart centers entering into your heart center and melting away. Maybe you can bring this to mind while you do this, is that for many years I've said to people that give me your suffering and I will send it off into infinite space. Really have the feeling that they are now free from suffering and that you are free from the shackles of this belief in a permanent, separate self. Now cease this part of the visualization and now visualize from your heart center, radiates outwards the white light representing all of your goodness, merit, good qualities, everything you find pleasing. Give this to others now. Enters into the heart centers of all of these living beings. Helps them to be happy. And helps you to give up attachment. And now we will do it with the inhaling and the exhaling. As you inhale, you receive the black smoke from others. And just like we did just then, relieve them from their suffering and destroy your ego. As you exhale, you give the white light, giving them all of your goodness and happiness, and helping them to be happy. Breathing in, breathing out. Now, once again, feel very pleased with yourself for engaging in the practice. And let's recite the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. And so I hope everybody's doing well. And just remind you with the meditations, including, let's say we do 4 there, including releasing the tension from the body, the breath meditation, to develop samadhi or one-pointed concentration. And then, of course, developing loving kindness and compassion. Each of these types of meditation, you should do for longer, for sure, than we do in this session. Today, I did them a little bit quicker. As you probably noticed, we went straight into the chanting because I wanted to remind you of you could say the other technique of the Tonglen, or giving taking, where you actually give the white light for a while or receive the black smoke for a while and white light for a while and so forth. Okay, so it's up to you which one or both, if you like, to practice that. And this specifically is a meditation to realize bodhicitta, so develop the great compassion, but also at the same time get closer and closer to realizing shunyata, or the emptiness of self, the wisdom. Okay, by melting away your self-centeredness, attachments, and your belief in this so-called self, what we in modern times may call ego. You know, this, we don't really have a word for ego in Sanskrit or Pali, but we can use that word for no problem, for convenience. It's a little bit different, though, to the Western idea of ego. Okay, so it's much deeper. So anyway, we are on to the second verse now. So we had 7 parts of the first of the commentary on the first verse. And so if you want to revisit any of those, just go to the YouTube channel to do so. It's easy to find. Every episode, I was about to say, no, every class is actually numbered. So it's pretty easy to find with the date on there and the subjects covered. So just be patient and have a look through. And actually you can study formally these, you know, but also you can study informally. Close your eyes and click your mouse and pick one. You know, it's like, as I've said this to you before, when I actually have studied the Dharma in the past, especially, I do the formal studies, you know, related to certain sutras or commentaries on sutras. And then every now and then, just pick something up or look in the Buddhist encyclopedia or dictionary or things like that, and just open up a page and learn, you know, absorb the mind with the Dharma, whatever it is you pick up that time. So be free with your studies. Do it in a formula way, you could say. Do it, you know, be strict with yourself without being too rigid and disciplined, but also at the same time be free. You're free to learn, you know, free to study the Dharma, whichever way suits you. And so now the second verse is the whenever I'm with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all, and from the very depth of my heart, I will respectfully hold others as supreme. This is not putting ourselves down, okay? Even though we say lowest of all there, maybe different translations don't use that phrase, maybe lower than others or something like that. For so many lifetimes, we have put ourselves above others. We have placed our own well-being above others. So in a way, you could say now we're equalizing it. We're humbling ourselves. We are allowing ourselves to have a more balanced mind, more balanced view of things, more stable mind, more flexible mind, so that we can give ourselves the freedom to practice. This is a word I'd like to use today, freedom. We do have the freedom to practice. We do have the freedom to eventually realize our true nature. But right now, we are shackled by our attachment to self, to others, to inner things, to outer things. What I mean by that, inner things such as our attitudes and our beliefs and so forth, other outside things, other beings, you know, material objects, planets, universes, so forth. Okay, so we're shackled by our attachment to these things, these phenomena. And so, but in reality, we have the freedom to free ourselves, okay? So I wanted to start today's class by mentioning that. This is a type of teaching that could be misunderstood, especially because it's in such short verse form. Don't take it in an extreme way, okay? Putting yourself down, putting others above you, you know, making yourself feel depressed and have low self-esteem and puffing others up. Like I said, we're undoing the old habit of being selfish, being self-centered. At the same time, undoing the old habit of having attachment to our loved ones and friends and so forth, those beings that have been kind to us. to having an aversion, dislike, even a hatred to those that we don't like, or having, regard as enemies, and also having a lack of care or an indifference towards those that we don't know, which basically is most living beings, isn't it? Okay, so the first verse pointed to the need to cultivate the thought of regarding all other sentient beings as precious. That's putting it very briefly. Realizing the preciousness of living beings, whether it relates to them from their side, but mainly from our side. Because for us to develop this great compassion, we need other living beings. And we need to think of infinite living beings, as mentioned previously, so that we can develop this compassion beyond limit. Second verse is the recognition of the preciousness of others and the sense of caring that you develop on that basis. It should not be based on a feeling of pity for others or the thought that they are inferior. That's just a little verse that I penned, okay? Just to let you know, this commentary is coming from previous notes that I've written, over time. Also new thoughts put to paper, and also some influence from His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings. Of course, Mahendra and Nelon, they sent the previous text that we worked off 6 years ago. And I've had a look at that a few months ago and just took a few notes from it and then added a bit, bits here and there. And so not just from my mind, but from my teacher's mind as well. And also other teachers' minds that have influenced the teachers' teachers, and the teachers of the teachers' teachers, and so on, going back to the Buddha, and even prior to that, to previous Buddhas. So basically, we're seeing other beings as precious, and also utilizing this thought for us to be able to create or accumulate, develop more and more care, more and more consideration for others, more and more compassion, basically. And don't have this idea of pitying others. It's a trap that we can fall into. Sometimes maybe you could regard this as kind of like a limited empathy in a sense, pitying others. In other words, at that stage, we're putting ourselves above others, putting them below us. We want to equalize this, okay? So rather, the caring and preciousness should be based on a reverence and respect, and kind of seeing them as superior beings. I'll mention here again to you that our true nature is enlightenment. This is for ourselves, but also all other living beings. Doesn't matter how low they may be. They may be a tiny insect in this world. They may be abiding in the hells or the hungry ghost realms. But actually still the true nature is Buddhahood. So just recall that. If ever you're thinking, these living beings, I hate those spiders or those poisonous snakes or something like that, or the hell living beings, they deserve to be in hell because they were terrible or something. Don't think like that, okay? Yes, this accords with the law of karma, but we want to go beyond thinking this way, okay? So developing the great compassion again. So see these beings as beings worthy of honor, worthy of respect, worthy of reverence. How should we understand this compassion in the Buddhist context? It's not ordinary, what we would call worldly compassion, or like I mentioned just before, empathy, ordinary empathy. It goes beyond all of this. Eventually, this compassion is based on wisdom, supreme wisdom. The wisdom is not separate from the compassion. Of course, compassion now, I'm talking about compassion and loving kindness together. This is the bodhicitta, isn't it? Based on a mind of equanimity, a non-biased mind. Going back there again to the four immeasurables, the 6 paramitas, all of these wonderful teachings, wonderful methods on how to realize this great compassion. So generally, compassion and loving kindness are two sides of the same coin, to use a metaphor. That's an example of Dalai Lama used, okay? I couldn't think of a better one. I could think of equal ones, but I thought I'd just use that one. It's very simple, isn't it? Two sides of the same coin. Maybe as we are developing these, we can split them up. Realize that true love and kindness is the wish for all beings to have happiness and have the causes of happiness, or engage in the causes of happiness, and therefore realize happiness. True compassion is the wish that all living beings are free from suffering and free from engaging in the causes of suffering. We can split them up, but ultimately that is all together, isn't it? So where am I up to here? So how should we understand the compassion from a Buddhist perspective, or in a context, in the Buddhist context? Generally, compassion, loving kindness, two sides of the same coin. Compassion, wanting all beings to be free from suffering. Loving kindness, wanting them to be happy. Same thing, really, isn't it? But for the sake of our practice, right now, we can split these things up. Just as when we were thinking of practicing the Eightfold Path, we split it up, right understanding, right intention, and so on. But ultimately, it's the same thing. That's why it's depicted in iconography as a wheel with 8 spokes, all interconnected, okay? All folding into each other. Another reason why we call it the Eightfold Path. Okay, so a bit scribbly with my writing. I realized I hadn't written many notes, so I actually had to write them again for these classes. I looked at them and went, well, this is a bit sort of messy. And so I've done them again, but maybe not so great. I should have done them maybe without my reading glasses on. So it's not ordinary worldly compassion and love. Remember that 5 kinds of love: the romantic love, parental love, endearing love, possessive love, which is very negative, and then we have metta, mahametta, the great loving kindness. That is what we're talking about here. And then, of course, once again, I'll say it again, married with compassion, bodhicitta. Okay, so based on wisdom, based on a mind of equanimity, which is also based on wisdom. It's not these ordinary loves. As I've mentioned to you before, like romantic love, that's fine. If you have a husband, a wife, partners, this is fine. Utilize this, even though it's based a lot on attachment and sort of like it's still with endearing love involved and things like this. But if you utilize it well, kind to each other, help each other to be more caring of each other, then this is kind of like you're living in your temple at home with your partner. Or if you have difficulties, still, this can help you, help you give up attachment, a little bit like that. But if you do have difficulties, sometimes noble silence is the best way. Sometimes to discuss things is the best way as well. Okay, so, but this is not the universal loving kindness or universal compassion. It has elements of these. And then, of course, we utilize the example of parental love to explain metta, but still it's limited because even though it has a lot of good qualities, caring for others, it really is still very limited because you're really caring for your family, maybe not outside, maybe indifferent to other people's children and other people's stuff. And then, of course, you have endearing love, which is close to that. This relates very much as well to other living beings, animals. Maybe you love animals. I saw something written, actually, it's quite funny. It said something like, when I see a little animal, I say, oh, hello. When I see a human being, I try very best not to get eye contact because they irritate me. Maybe sometimes it's easier to have love and compassion, endearing love in this case, towards animals because we don't argue with them or something. We should obviously drop this habit as well and work towards caring for all living beings. Whether we agree with their behaviors or not doesn't really matter at this stage. We are training our mind. Bring it back to that as well, helping others to do likewise if at all possible. But initially, training your mind. So I just thought I'd mention that. Of course, we have attachment to friends, as mentioned before, indifference towards what we call strangers. This is not just humans now, this is all living beings. And then, of course, we have an aversion normally to enemies. We want to slowly, or as quick as possible, actually, relinquish this, all right? Develop more the mind of equanimity, to give up our biases so that we can develop this great compassion. So this is based on self-interest and consideration of ourselves. When we categorize people really and other living beings as friends, enemies, strangers, isn't it? We're thinking it from our own point of view. Maybe somebody is very kind, but for whatever reason, maybe previous life karma or things like this, maybe we don't get on or something like that. But this is happening in our own mind. So this is based on the self-interest and self-consideration only. Once again, if you recognize this, work to give it up, okay? Attachment can lead to anger and hatred arising very quickly too. So we have attachment to our loved ones. And this also can lead to anger. Maybe all of a sudden we don't get on with our loved ones. It can lead to anger, very destructive emotion. Remember that, especially anger in play, like fully blown anger. And hatred, very closely related, okay? Come from aversion, one of the three poisons, comes from ignorance, a lack of understanding how things really are. Attachment can also turn into its opposite when things change for the worse. Instead of wishing happiness, then, we probably wish for others' misery, isn't it? And that's probably not a good thing to do. Maybe we don't do that. Maybe we have trained our mind so well so far, but make sure you don't go backwards, in having this attachment. You have attachment to what we find pleasing, and then if something changes, maybe you love certain type of food, but as you get older, you have attachment to that food. As you get older, it doesn't agree with your stomach. Then you get angry with it because it makes you feel sick. It's not a great example, but I think you understand what I'm talking about. There is the change in our physical things as our form scanner, but also changes in our mentality as well, and changes in those outside things. Everything is impermanent. All right, so that's all for today. I know we're under a minute. I don't know when it actually happened, but I rejoice in your goodness. I really enjoy spending time with you here. I will see you next week, and feel free to shoot me any questions about today's class or other classes or anything, actually. Anyway, by text, email, phone, no problems.